Welcome at the expert talk of the greatness of SAFe 6.0. My name is Oskar Kawecki. I'm an enterprise agile coach and SPCT candidate at SIA Poland, and together with Harry Kinnaman, SAFe methodologist and fellow at Scaled Agile, I will have a pleasure to co-host today's webinar. Welcome, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Oscar. I'm very excited to be here and talk about SAFe 6.
Thank you, Harry. All right, before we start, let me go briefly through the agenda. So the webinar is scheduled for 1 hour, and in the beginning, Harry and I will share the presentation, followed by the Q&A session. And please write your questions either on the chat or in the webinar. There is a dedicated section for the questions. And we promise to do our best to answer all the questions, but if we won't be able to do so, please don't worry. At the end of the presentation, Harry and I will share our email addresses with you, and we promise to answer every question. Okay, let's get started then. So, Harry, it has been a while since the last big SAFe release, and there is a lot of excitement around SAFe 6.0. You are involved directly in the development of the framework. Could you please tell us briefly what's new and how does it affect the ongoing and future SAFe implementations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, thanks. So we had a lot of folks, organizations that have been part of the journey of SAFe. I think SAFe 6, it's where SAFe finally, it's evolved, right? It started out with Dean and a website and a blog post, and he had some, early adopters, some innovators that were applying SAFe with him, and he was evolving the framework, literally every time he updated it, every time he updated his website, updated the blog, and it's matured. I think SAFe 6 is where SAFe finally kind of grows up and gets out of college, if you will. We did a lot of learning over the last several years, added DevOps, added business agility, added, a large solution level, with a solution intent for those people that do compliant type systems, automotive and aerospace and defense type companies. Now we really want to focus on how do we go faster, right? I think we've got a lot of the pieces of SAFe, and now it's just how do we go faster? How do we get better, deeper guidance to folks that want to, they want to grow with SAFe? And we talk about SAFe 6.0 in really 6 different themes. It's strengthening business agility, empowering teams, and really clarifying responsibilities. One thing, we had all the SAFe roles, but we really had, very frankly, poor articles that describe what a person in that role does. It's just really things to think about. Now we're very clear about specific responsibilities. We'll talk about that in a little bit. A strong emphasis on flow, which we'll spend quite a bit of time today talking about. It's not just software development anymore, right? It's the whole business that wants to be agile. CEOs don't want to hear that, yeah, you're going to make my IT department agile. They want to hear you're going to make my enterprise, my organization agile. So we have to talk about, what that means and what it looks like. AI, big data, AI particularly, but it's built on big data and cloud, cloud native type applications. That is emerging, and so we knew we need to be out in front of it. So that's a strong theme of SAFe 6.0 as well. We won't talk much about that today. Focus on the other aspects, but certainly we have a strong AI presence in SAFe, and you'll probably see that grow, right? As AI becomes more predominant in how we build applications, certainly we'll be talking about AI. And last but not least, people need to measure. They need to measure things to improve. So we got additional guidance on how to measure things and how to grow from that measurement. And then OKRs. A lot of organizations are using objective and key results to communicate intent and communicate direction. So we need to find a way to integrate those into SAFe. And these are outlined for today, the things we'll talk about. Thanks. Next slide. So here is SAFe 6.0 in all of its glory. Several changes. One is you'll see a nice facelift. We have different colors. The old color palette, I think, had 60 different colors in it or something. I'm not a designer, right? But the design people looked at it and says, you guys realize there's so many colors in here, because it was, again, it evolved over time from people who design wasn't their emphasis. So this is a much cleaner look. It's more symmetrical. It's more pleasing to the eye, I think. We have purple people. Purple people are always fun. So we put color intention in different places, and we really brought a bunch of designers in to really help give it a facelift. For those that know SAFe, it looks very common, right? We still have the same 4 layers. We still have the spanning palette on the right. We still have all the roles on the left. So not a lot of structural changes. In fact, we have a partner called that does process work, and Peter Pedros from Pedco, and I was just talking with him yesterday. The changes to SAFe was the smallest he's seen in terms of different process elements. I didn't have to add a bunch of new process elements. However, the content was radically changed. 80% of the content and the words changed because the guidance changed. So SAFe really didn't grow much by content. I think there were 12 or 14 new articles compared to other versions. But we really gave every article got rewritten, got a facelift, and was reviewed by the entire team. Every article went through what we call a mob review of the entire team. So every article had a detailed facelift. All right, next slide, please. So let's talk about some significant changes. Again, you've seen Lean Agile mindset. You've seen SAFe principles, right? So those we haven't changed the core elements, but what we say about those core elements has changed quite a bit. Next slide, please. One big change, for example, well, not big change. We had the business agility value stream before. It now gets a promotion. The business agility value stream was kind of tucked in behind an article. Now it's predominantly displayed on the banner, the business agility banner on top of SAFe, because it's a really big deal. It's the goal of SAFe, right? Many bad behaviors at organizations stem from not following business agility value stream, right? We fund things on an annual basis. We have regulatory practices. We do big batches of specifications, big batches of everything, integration, big batches of testing, 4 months of user acceptance tests, et cetera. We want organizations to be thinking instead that I've got an opportunity and I want feedback on that opportunity in 2 to 6 months. How can I do that? Right, and that's really the goal of business agility, to make that happen. So we gave it a promotion. It is now sitting prominently on the top of the top of SAFe. It's not just business agility; it's that entire value stream. We've wrapped the value stream inside of business agility. All right, next slide, please. We made some significant updates to the Lean Agile mindset. We used to have a house of Lean. The house of Lean is gone, right? Why do we think that we need to describe Lean? Right? The Lean community already describes Lean. It's called Lean thinking, right? So and it really helps us focus the fact that I want, as quickly as possible, take that innovative new idea, get it into an environment, in some operational customer type environment, for feedback. Is this the right idea? Will this change the business the way we expect? Will the customer like this thing or not? Do we have the right technology? Do we make the right technology assumptions that we can even build this thing and get it into an operational environment? So it's quick, and that's what Lean's about, is getting rid of all the waste and steps to getting value out to a customer. So we focused So instead of us rethinking Lean is now what Lean thinking says. It's specify the value by product, identify the value stream to produce each product, make value flow without interruption. You will hear that again in a minute. So that is one of the principles of Lean is number 3, make value flow without interruption. Let the for the producer and pursue perfection. Big emphasis on product, big emphasis on customer, right? So that is really our goal. And of course, we're an Agile framework. We're built on the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile values and the Agile principles. And we more specifically now in that article call them out, right? They're the foundation of everything. A lot of bad behaviors, right, come from not being Agile. Right, our primary value is to provide value to a customer. Right? We want to build things in small batches and do small releases. So using these as the foundation, right? This is the mindset. We have to have an Agile mindset. And we have to have a Lean thinking type mindset. All right, next slide. So the SAFe principles all got 8. Actually, watch in the future. We're changing 8 and 9, so you might see those coming up in a couple blog posts here. There's a couple items we didn't get to before we launch 6, so watch 8 and 9. They don't change by name, but they certainly do change by content, right? We've reworked those so they're much better articles. Say the principle number 6 got a rewrite. In fact, it got a new name. It was the I used to call it kind of the Lean principle, the flow principle anyway, because it was, batches and queues and those types of things. It was just really a list of things we want to do to improve flow. So we rewrote Principle 6, gave it a new name, Make Value Flow Without Interruption. It's a great article. It defines flow, right? We actually looked for a definition of flow. What are the elements and properties of flow? We couldn't find one, so we invented our own, right? So if you read that article, you'll see that we give a definition to flow. We also specifically define what organizations can do to improve flow. right? We talk about 8 specific flow accelerators, right? These are the accelerators that you can apply to try to improve flow. Get rid of WIP, do things in smaller batches, right? Have lower queues. Get rid of all the bureaucracy, right? All the legacy bureaucracy things. So a lot of good guidance in there. And now this is a foundation, right? This make value flow without interruption that then we can use into the rest of the articles inside of SAFe, right? This is the foundation. So you will see that we'll have articles that specifically talk about flow. In fact, Oscar is going to talk about some of those specific things, but this is where the foundation lies. All right, next slide, please. So we've rethought not just the SPC role, but all roles. As I think I mentioned earlier, the role articles really didn't have a lot of love, didn't get a lot of attention in the past. There were articles there, role articles, but really, to be frank, the origin of many of those articles came when SAFe was early. Organizations said, hey, we don't have a Scrum Master title in our HR system. Give us a list of responsibilities that a Scrum Master does or a product owner does. So it was just a bulleted list of, 20 or 30 things that you might think about to be a product owner, things you might think about to be a Scrum Master. They weren't organized in any way. They weren't, it wasn't a story. It was just a bulleted list of stuff. Primarily the audience of that was HR folks, so they could put it in their HR systems. We completely rethought all of the roles, starting with the SPC role. What is the fundamental responsibility for this role? And what do SPCs need to do with the organization? These, by the way, the SPC consultants, these are the ones that perform the organizational change to bring agile and business agility into the enterprise, right? So these are the folks that are empowered and trained, frankly, and safe and lean and agile to be able to make that happen. They need to embody that lean agile mindset so they can communicate it and represent it to the organization. They need to lead the change. They're the ones that are going to parts of the organization and changing the way people work and changing the way people think. They have to implement SAFe, right? Fundamentally, they're the change agents that make SAFe happen or that make lean agile happen. And specifically, we talk frequently about the fact that they're responsible for coaching flow. You'll see many other roles that are responsible for coaching flow. We'll talk about in the next slide here, but they're also responsible for flow. Great, yeah, go ahead. Next slide. So SPC is one of the roles that we changed, but really we changed all the roles. So we changed the individual roles, but also notice that Art, the Agile Release Train's outlined there, as well as the Agile team. So they got responsibility wheels as well. That little circle of responsibility wheels we saw for the SPC. We did that to every one of the roles and Arts and teams, because Arts and teams, I guess, are really roles as well. Next slide, please. And Solution Train. We didn't highlight that one. We did Solution Train as well, interestingly enough. All right, so here's just a summary of those articles. You guys can go read them for yourselves, but every role got rethought, right, and got a responsibility wheel. There's some categories, right? It's teams and Arts need to deliver value, right? So you'll see some commonality in some of those elements. Scrum Masters, Release Train Engineers, and Solution Train Engineers, they need to coach flow. They need to perform. They need to improve relentlessly, be responsible for the improvement, the continuous improvement at the organization. And they need to make sure they need to support execution, right? We need to execute well. So it's that Scrum Master, RTE, and Solution Train Engineer responsibility for execution. Product managers, product owners, and teams all need to connect to the customer, right? So there's certainly some themes that roll around these responsibilities. And if you look at some of these responsibility wheels side by side, you can see some of those themes that play out as well. All right, next section, I think, is on flow. And Oscar, you're going to talk to us about flow, correct?
Definitely. Thank you, Harry. So the first section is all about accelerating value flow. And being competitive in today's fast-paced world means accelerating value flow becomes actually skill in the digital age. And the world around us accelerates at an enormous pace, something that we have not seen in the past. And so does the framework. SAFe is definitely a flow-based framework. Whether we are talking about teams delivering user stories or epics that progress through the portfolio, we see flow at every level. And all the organizations are operating in value streams. The only difference is that some organizations realize it and some organizations don't. And what are the properties of every flow-based system? regardless to where the flow is. You can see them on this slide. And once we understand the properties of flow, we also learn how to address them. Because, quoting Edvard Deming, the common disease that afflicts management around the world is an impression that our problems are different. Yes, of course, they are different, but on the other hand, the principles that can help us to do something about those problems and to address them are universal in nature. That's why we have those 8 flow accelerators, and we'll go through them briefly to see how they can help us to optimize a property. So first one, we always have to remember that introducing too much work into the system breaks the system immediately and is a killer to our efficiency. That's why we always have to visualize and limit our work in progress using tools such as Kanban. We have to relentlessly address and identify the bottlenecks, because we know that optimizing a component does not optimize the system, and that a system cannot evolve faster than its slowest integration point. Minimize hands-on and dependencies. So if after the PA planning your artboard looks like this, looks like a spaghetti, you definitely should do something about it. Get faster feedback. So we know that our goal is to deliver valuable products to our customers in the shortest sustainable lead time and in the highest quality. But how do we actually know if the customer is satisfied? Only after getting the feedback. So we have to work in those short integrated learning loops, making sure that we are building the right products for the right customers at the right time. Work in smaller batches. Why? Because the smaller the batch, the faster it flows through the system and with the least variability. Reduce queue lengths, because queues introduce waste, delay, and information decay. Optimize time in the zone. Do you remember this time when you really needed to concentrate on something at work and you were interrupted every 5 minutes? We all know how it feels. That's why we have to find periods of uninterrupted work in our companies. And also remediate the legacy policies and practices. So this is the time when we state that we are agile, but we are still sending this report every week that nobody reads, and we are having those status report meetings that everybody hates. But we state that we are agile. So we have to exactly look for those policies and practices and do everything that we can to eliminate them. And as you can see, those accelerators, they touch flow at every level of SAFe. And now we have 4 great new articles that can help you to accelerate the flow on the team, art, solution, and portfolio level. The next big change is that in SAFe 6, all SAFe backlogs, including the team backlog, are managed and visualized via Kanban system. And as you can see over here, every backlog highlighted in the big picture has been merged with its associated Kanban article that can help you to accelerate the flow. And Kanban is a very powerful tool, not only to manage and optimize the flow, but it also serves as a giant information radiator promoting transparency across the organization. So I strongly recommend every team to use it. Next thing, in SAFe 6.0, Scrum and Kanban have been blended. So we know that some of the teams prefer working in Kanban over Scrum, and that's totally fine. And now those teams can use SAFe Team Kanban method while being part of the Agile release trains.
Hey, can I pause you for a second there?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So if when you're gonna transition slides from the Team Kanban to the SAFe Scrum, I believe, and if you notice, there's really not much difference between the methods, right? So we used to say in SAFe that, well, most teams blend some form of Kanban and some form of Scrum, right? So most teams do a daily stand-up. Even if you're a Kanban team, you probably sync, right? You do some kind of a sync either daily or every 2 or 3 days. But we never really formally defined it. So finally in SAFe 6, we have, right, that additional guidance, right? We already had Scrum and Kanban, but we give deeper guidance on how you might go about as a team blending those things. We used to say it, but now we actually give a description of it. So if you read the Kanban article, which you're showing now, and then the Scrum article, which you're about to show, certainly Scrum's based on the Scrum guide and all the practice associated with Scrum, but there's really not much difference between them, right? We expect that you do some kind of planning. Even in Kanban, should you plan? Yeah, look at, I mean, right there, we have a team backlog and there's some kind of planning. Is it a formal 2-hour iteration planning event? Doesn't have to be. We just got together this morning and said, hey, what are we going to do this week? Oh, we just did it. So a lot of it is informal, but we still expect a Kanban team to plan. We still expect them to sync occasionally. We expect them to incrementally release, right? So even though it's not specifically called out, we expect Kanban teams to go participate in a cadence-based type system. So it's kind of cool. We in the past always we use the words to say most teams blend these. Now we actually give the guidance on how to blend them, and it's shown here, and you'll see it on the next slide too, that there's not a whole lot of difference between the Kanban and the Scrum team methods. Thanks, Oscar.
Definitely. Thank you, Harry, and I couldn't agree more. And I personally cannot imagine working without Kanban. So obviously the teams are working in Scrum in my organization, but we visualize the work in Kanban. And on the other hand, do you need to plan for the next 2 weeks? You don't. You can use just use the Kanban board and the backlog, just like Harry said. But it requires, from my experience, a little bit more discipline. Yeah, because we have to always think about those timelines and remember that you are working on the same cadence as the other teams. But yes, thank you, Harry. That's really great. Those two methods have been blended, and I think that they complement one each other.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, just like Harry mentioned, then in SAFe 6.0 also SAFe Scrum XP, which stands for Extreme Programming, as you can see, has been renamed to SAFe Scrum, and Extreme Programming Inspired Practices were moved into built-in quality and other articles. So Extreme Programming, from my experience, it is a great framework that focuses on quality and introduces such practices as test-driven development or pair programming. So it definitely makes sense that those practices were moved into built-in quality, because quoting Dean Leffingwell, you cannot scale a crappy code or hardware or anything else. So yeah, those teams have to think about building the quality in their everyday work, definitely. And here on the right, you can see this is almost, if we could just go back, you can see this is almost the same slide, just like Harry said. Yeah, there is not so much difference between both of them, but over here you see the updated SAFe Scrum cycle, and it actually shows the cycle from two perspectives. So the first perspective is the team level, but also the second one when the team operates as a part of the larger system. For example, Agile Release Train, and we see that those stories that are coming from the PI planning. We should also be looking not only on our sprint goals, but also on the PI objectives, and the iteration review. We always have to think, and the system demos, we always have to remember that we are part of the larger system, and we need to integrate early and often with the other teams. So I believe that this is a really great guidance for the teams which never worked in those big systems before. And as you might already seen, the SAFe 6 is concentrated around the flow, and there are Kanban systems at every level. So for those of you who would like to know how to apply Kanban in SAFe, there is a great extended guidance article that can help us to learn what Kanban is and how to set up a Kanban board that will support in your value stream and identify Kanban classes of service that can help you to maximize the flow. And lastly, in this section, value stream management also gets a promotion. So delivering digital solutions is always very difficult, yeah, and it's very how we say, it's very complex, yeah, because especially because we always have to look at those dependencies, and we always have to look for those hands-offs, and there are many steps in this process. That's the leadership has to make sure that the value flows through our organization smoothly. And the value stream management can help our leaders to understand what is the role in the end-to-end delivery of value across the organization to maximize the benefits and the business outcomes.
Can I make a comment here as well?
Perfect.
Yeah, this is an industry. I think this is an industry trend that we're trying to stay out in front of, which is, organizations. If we back up 20 years, there was a group responsible for trying to make execution happen in an organization, the PMO, the project management organization, right? We have a bunch of developers here. Who's making sure work gets moved through the system? I'll make sure. I'll manage the work, and I'll get my people. And so I think this is a natural evolution, right? We had a PMO, and then we had an agile PMO, which is trying to do agile things inside the PMO. And the next thing really is the VMO, the value or value stream management organization. It's still the same intent that we started 2 decades ago, which is try to optimize the flow of work through the system. But now I think we use the methods we had at the time 20 years ago, which weren't the best methods, right? Now then they became the agile PMO. But now it's really the value management group, I think. And so we're making sure that we're out in front of that kind of terminology and phrasing and guidance to make sure SAFe is well aware of it. And you see that now too with some of the organizations, right? The tooling, it was application lifecycle, ALM tools. Now they're value stream. They'll say we manage the value stream. We manage the work across this value stream. You'll see that from a Rally or from a Jira, Jira line and things like that. So I just want to comment on the fact that I think this is an industry trend that's going to continue. Kind of like the AI that we won't talk about AI today, but that's another thing that we want AI on the big picture so that we can evolve the guidance we have around AI behind the big picture. Thanks, Oscar. Thanks. Let me jump in.
Thank you, Harry. And I, again, couldn't agree more. And I'm a very lean person. So for me, this is really also something that stands out in SAFe. So we can be agile, definitely. But we know that it doesn't matter how mature or how agile the team is. If the team operates in a value stream that doesn't support the delivery of value, they pretty much cannot do anything about it, because managers, only the leadership can change the system under which the other teams operate. And this is something which is really, really important. Now, there is the value stream management, and it is the leader's responsibility to make sure and to set such environment for the agile teams to thrive, because without this, being agile is not enough.
Yeah, great point. Excellent point.
Thank you, Harry. All right, so back to you. Back to you, Harry.
Oh yeah, thank you. So so we also get asked frequently about enhancing the business, and unfortunately, that we have an article that we've had for a while tucked under business and technology. It didn't say a lot. We had some agile marketing content. We had some. We all know that as we become agile organization, anybody that's worked with teams, especially in development teams, you start bumping into the other parts of the organization that aren't agile, right? They're the next impediments, as we learned from the goal, the theory of constraints, right? I'm moving faster until I hit the next constraint, the next bottleneck. Well, a lot of times those bottlenecks now are in the organization, in the enterprise, right? The enterprise isn't agile. So we now have much better guidance on how to create value streams that aren't just development value streams. They're development value streams and business value streams. We have organizations that, for example, I'm a development value stream developing healthcare products, but I have nurses and I have pharmacies in my actual value, in my SAFe value stream. Well, is that a development value stream? Is that an operational value stream? It's kind of both. It's all one together, right? So as we have organizations that are frankly moving past the guidance that we have, we've got to keep up. And I wish that this wasn't tucked in the lower left part of SAFe, because I think it will become much more prominent in the beginning, just speaking frankly. I think that really this is fundamentals of being a business, fundamentals of business agility. And I think that you'll see us in the future talk more about it. But for now, it's tucked over in the little corner, lower left corner under business technology, even though it's a really big deal. Right, next slide, please. So right now, if you read that article, we talk about additional patterns for business agility. It's not just about development value streams. That's where, you know, that's where Agile has made its mark and shown immense value, right? I can't imagine developing systems, whether software systems, hardware systems, any other kind of system, in a traditional way with a big batch of specifications and a big batch of design and we release one time to the customer. Nobody builds that way anymore. But what about the other aspects of development, right? It's not just the fact that how do we get that thing into the operational environment? How do we move it through the system to get feedback from the customer? We're seeing now business-enabled arts, for example, where we have business people that are actually in the art, helping make those decisions. We have an agile business train. That's really the whole operational value stream is on the train, right? It has all the developers, all the other business functions that are required to make that train work. We have business functions by themselves. I'll go to the lower middle one. We have an agile business function, a marketing department or a sales department that's using Agile to run marketing and run sales. There's no development there at all. I mean, they develop things, but they're marketing campaigns or they're sales management kind of campaigns. So their products aren't really a technical product. Their products are like a marketing product kind of thing. So we're being asked to address that as well. Also, they're Agile executive teams, right? So we have organizations that have CEOs and their executive staff that are running Agile. They have a Scrum Master, right? They have a product owner. They have a product owner that manages their backlog. They have a backlog and get run that way. And then a combined portfolio. That's right now, if you look at SAFe portfolios, they're a portfolio of solutions, development value streams that build solutions that support operational value streams. What if a portfolio that's responsible for an unit? I'm responsible for the operations, the development. I'm responsible for everything. So those are patterns we're seeing emerge. We don't really have answers yet. You know, this is, you know, the pointy end of the stick, as they say, in terms of we're not quite sure how this is going to play out, but we're doing it, and we like to listen. And this will be a thrust of ours for the next two or 3 years, I think. You know, getting more specifics and deeper guidance here as we talk to customers. So thanks. Next slide, please. In addition to that, if you go to there's read more. If you go to the SAFe webpage, there's read more. There's 3 categories. There's extended guidance, which is our extended guidance. There's community contributions, where our SPCTs and fellows, people like Oscar, though, they can write articles and get them on of things they're experiencing, right? Their thoughts and opinions about how to be agile in business. Then there's a third page, which is the SAFe Beyond IT homepage. And that's specific examples about doing SAFe, not just in the development value stream, right? SAFe Beyond IT. You see Agile risk management, finance. I think there's 8 or 9, right? So as we get more of these types, we're going out of our way. We're intentionally going out of our way to try to find more examples of these things and then bring them back and put them as articles on our homepage. That's going to inform our thoughts for SAFe 6. Whatever, 6.5, 7.3. You know, as SAFe evolves, that's going to be certainly one area where we're going to grow. Is not just SAFe for business, right? Business agility is operational and development. All right, next slide, please. Last section, as I mentioned, feel free to read the AI article. There's AI articles. There's a big data article if you see up there in the portfolio view up there, and there's a cloud article. So we have the AI big data cloud kind of trio, if you will, that are required for AI. AI is still emerging. We're not quite sure how it affects SAFe organizations. We have many organizations that have data scientists on value streams, data scientists on teams. We have many organizations that are developing AI ML type of applications using SAFe and using Agile. Right? That is the right fast feedback. The solutions they build now, the solutions at the end are, you know, an AI bot or machine learning that gets deployed just like any other software. So we're still, again, just like the business and technology, the AI is also emerging as well as another one of our research areas. But the sixth one here, the sixth theme of SAFe 6.0 is delivering better outcomes with measure and grow and OKRs. So next slide, please.
Should I cover this?
Yeah, next slide, please.
Should I cover this, Harry? The 6?
Oh yeah, you're covering 6. I'm sorry. You cover 6. I'm sorry.
Nah, no problem. I know that you could talk for hours. Yeah, so.
I know.
So should I cover it, or do you want to cover it?
Please, you cover it. You cover it if you'd like to. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So, the last topic that we would like to cover today is, as Harry said, delivering better outcomes with Measure and Grow and OKRs. Business agility sets new performance standards for our organizations. Because in today's digital economy, the ability to quickly sense and respond to our customers' needs is the only truly sustainable competitive advantage. And if the organizations want to make those informed and data-driven decisions, they need to know what and how to measure. That's why the metrics article is now Measure and Grow. And it describes the approach the SAFe Enterprise take to measure their progress towards business agility. And this model is built around 3 measurement domains. The outcomes, so how do we know that our solutions meet the needs of our customers and also business stakeholders? Flow, how efficient is the organization at delivering value to our customers? And competency, how proficient is the organization in the practices that enable business agility? And in my opinion, the last one is the most important one. And we always have to remember when implementing SAFe that our goal is not to work in 2x sprints or using story points. Those will not make us agile. And that our ultimate goal is to enable business agility across the organization. And those are 2 very different things. And lastly, the OKRs section. So this is also very, very interesting. And we all understand how important it is to align the entire organization around clear goals and measured results. And the OKRs, so objectives and key results, can definitely help us to accomplish it. Many organizations, as Harry said, use OKRs, and now they are part of SAFe. And they can help us to set measurable goals for our portfolios, epics, agile release trains, and solution trains, and also to set our goals for the implementation roadmap as well.
Can I say something about OKRs?
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, I like to talk. So ironically, my first job out of college was at Intel. Way back in the late 80s, early 90s, I worked at Intel, and we did OKRs, right? Because they got invented at Intel. And I had objective and key results every quarter that were driven by my managers and his managers and his managers, and it was a way to keep alignment across teams. OKRs, Google does OKRs, and they've made them sexy again, or made them prominent again. Google has. So we have a lot of customers. In fact, this conversation just came up yesterday. That a lot of customers using OKRs. We added them as optional in SAFe. They're kind of on the palette, and we described how you could use OKRs in SAFe. I think again in the next couple years, as more and more organizations integrate OKRs into their system, you'll see a tighter integration of OKRs into SAFe. Right now, we say it's optional. You could use OKRs for strategic themes. You could use them to describe things, but I think based on as OKRs become more prominent in organizations, you'll probably see us integrate them more tightly as we go forward. Just want to make that comment. Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you, Harry. And OKRs are really, really powerful. I can just maybe share my experience. I once worked with an organization which had about 70 OKRs per quarter. So if you see this kind of 70 or 100 OKRs per quarter, this is way too much. So be careful and not to call every goal an OKR. Yes, that's
that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. Yeah, 70 OKRs. Whew, it would be hard to cover all of them. Thank you, Harry. All right, so I'm looking at the clock and we are just in time. So thank you so much for your attention. And yeah, there is a really great flow always when talking with Harry, so we could definitely talk for the next couple of hours. Yeah, now it's time for your questions, and there is a lot beyond what we already said. And we know that we have just, scratched the surface. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So please go to the safe.com and scaleagile.com and yeah, explore those great articles, because there is a lot of there. But now it's time to answer your questions. All right, so let me stop sharing and take a look at the chat. So Chris is writing something. All right, no questions so far. So
we answered everybody's questions with our presentation, apparently.
Okay.
So I'm curious. I know you were in Boulder recently. Is that right?
Yes, I was.
What was one of your memorable moments of participating in the SBCT program kickoff? I'm curious, what did you learn? What's something you might have learned from that, week-long adventure over there in Boulder at the Scaled Agile headquarters?
Thank you, Harry. The easier answer would be what I have not learned. So I have learned a lot, but the first thing is that I went there with very high expectations, but the immersion week was really mind-blowing, and it exceeded all my expectations. And I was going there with high expectations, but I didn't expect that I'm going to meet people that I will be able to call friends. And this is something that is very, very unique. So I mean it all about the cohort, but also Andy, Dean and Adam, everybody, they were like so friendly that it's absolutely amazing. But what I also take professionally, and this is something that I've shared with Dean, that observing how Dean and Andy, they ran this implementing SAFe class, and obviously you have this leading SAFe class for the first 2 days, opened my eyes in many directions. And I have run so many leading SAFe classes that if you wake me up and in the middle of the night and you would ask me, Oscar, will you run a leading SAFe class in 5 minutes? Yeah, sure. Just fire up the presentation, and I will absolutely have no problem in doing it. But actually, I was going back home on Sunday, and I had a leading SAFe class on Monday, and I was like so excited to lead this class, because the whole experience opened so many other possibilities and direction, and it helped me to evolve as a professional a lot.
Yeah, I would second that. For me, meeting this community, getting introduced to this community, you're correct. Everybody's friendly. They all want to help each other. They just want to grow. And I've learned so much and continue to learn so much just by getting engaged with this community. Yourself included, and all the other SBCTs fellows, and just even customers. Right, the opportunity to go meet customers and get engaged with them has been, and that's what evolves SAFe. That's all the ideas that we have in SAFe. They're not our ideas. We're not that smart, right? We listen to people, we read a lot, and then we make it a system, right? Dean's big point is it has to be a system. If you have a new idea, it's got to fit into the way the rest of the system operates and works. And all the good ideas come from other sources. What's happening in the field. We listen to people about. Excuse me a second. That's why we are so interested and keen on listening to what other people are doing around business and technology. We're not going to invent those patterns, but we're going to be able to look at what people are doing. We're going to be able to mine those patterns out and be able to communicate them back to, the broader community, and package it up in a system that they can consume and be able to make their businesses better.
Definitely. And it was a very humble moment to realize how much I still don't know and how much is there to learn. But on the other hand, it was like, okay, it made me even more humble because I know that there is a lot to learn. But on the other hand, it was exciting and not overwhelming, if you know what I mean. Because sometimes you can go to a conference and they will tell you, you don't know nothing, and it will take years to get there, and you're just feeling bad afterwards. Yeah, and like you said, everybody was so friendly, everybody wanted to help each other, so you know that you're on this path, and you know that it's not going to take you weeks, months, it's going to be a lifetime journey. Yeah, but you are excited to go there because you are going with people like you and with Adam and Dean, and this is something that makes it very, very special. And obviously I'm part of Agile community in Poland, but there is nothing like SAFe community. I have never ever seen people who, like you said, they are so friendly and they want to help each other so much. This is really unique.
Yeah, like you said, you walk into places, everybody's, when you go to present at a conference, or heck, even doing this webinar, right? You're just afraid of, there's a certain amount of fear, even though you know the topic well. But I think that, working with a group of people that are humble, like you said, they're all humble. They all think the same way, right? You guys all know more than me. We all know more than each other. We want to help each other grow. We want to help each other learn. It's a really great environment.
Definitely.
How do we check for more questions? Do we have any questions yet?
We have a question.
Question!
Yeah, perfect.
Yay, question.
Okay, let's wait a moment. So let's use this time for a quick ad. So if you have not booked your tickets to SAFe Summit in Prague, you definitely should do so. So between 15th and 17th of May, we'll see each other in Prague, and looking forward to see you there.
Yeah, well, Oscar and I will both be there. Come look us up.
Yeah.
We'll have a beer, have some beer and some dinner one night at the receptions.
Definitely. All right, Harry, so a question to you. How do you start the conversation in projects when on the surface everyone is safe, but under the hood you notice a lot of old enterprise structure / formal ways of working in silos?
So I the new articles for Principle 8 and Principle 9. So Principle 8 is going to come out, I think, pretty soon. And I read the draft of Dean's blog post for it. And in there, he says that Agile is not a natural state. He said, or may not be. He's positing that Agile may not be a natural state. Agile isn't a state that we normally like to be in, right? For some people, they start doing Agile, but it's not their natural state, and they fall back into old ways. And what he says is that instead of focusing on being agile, maybe it's more important to focus on flow, right? So if we start measuring, so look at flow. I mean, data, what do they say about data, right? The facts are friendly. If we emphasize flow, if we start measuring things, you can say, are we getting more value out today than we got out yesterday? It doesn't matter that, yeah, we're doing daily stand-ups, and yes, we have well-formed stories, and yes, we do sprint planning and PI planning, and yes, we do all these agile events and activities. Well, that's just checking the box to say we're doing agile, which is true, but that's not the end goal. The end is, did we move the needle? Did we make the business better? Did we make the customer happier? Did we make employees engage more? Do we raise employee engagement? Are they more engaged and happier to be employees at our company? So we have to that's really the end goal. So let's measure those things. And we have the article Measure and Grow that Oscar talked about at the end. The Measure and Grow article has all those dimensions of measurement. Let's start measuring flow. Let's start measuring outcomes. And let's start seeing if that's moving the needle. So, and you use that data, frankly, to then start affecting change in the organization. So you have very traditional ways of working. Well, that's that, and Oscar mentioned that in the flow talk, right? The remediate legacy policies and practices, I think is what it's called, that flow accelerator. When you start talking about flow and you start looking at the bottlenecks of flow, then as you start talking about those bottlenecks, one of them is those legacy policies and practices. So we want to move away from trying to just be agile and do the ceremonies towards trying to improve through metrics, improving our outcomes, improving our flow. We have flow metrics specifically. And if you want to improve flow, we can look to those flow accelerators. And specifically, there's one that talks about, those legacy practices that you can look at. And we can start pointing to those, say, the reason it's taking us so long. In fact, I've done work in the US government. We tried to optimize our portion of the delivery process. It didn't matter how much we optimized here because there was a 9-month process the federal government took after we released it to get it actually into the operational environment. So it didn't matter how we could improve by days here. We're trying to save hours in a build cycle when it really didn't matter because there was 9 months to go to once we give it to the government. So then you look at, well, what's the legacy policies and practices here that we do? Can we start shifting some of those things left? So flex down flow, value stream mapping, value stream improvement, accelerating flow, all those things we describe in that SPC coaching flow article. I should say the SPC articles coaching flow section is key, I would say. Anything to add, Oscar?
Yeah, thank you, Harry. So what obviously I agree with everything you said. Something that maybe I would add is always when you're doing those transformations, maybe when you're talking with the teams, try to identify the pain points. Yeah, what are the pain points for the teams? What is actually not working? Because, for example, Harry and I, we could go to every organization and work through a weekend and come and say, here is a really great plan. Just implement it, you are going to be agile. Guess how excited all the people would be about it? Not so much. But on the other hand, if Harry and I would go to the organization and first talk with the teams and then talk with the executives and say what's not working, yeah, and why is it not working? So we are working in silos, so probably there are handoffs, yeah, probably there are dependencies, probably you are fighting one another. So dev is fighting DevOps because devs are always aiming for speed, ops are always aiming for stability, and you have business which is always aiming for predictability, and you have 3 different worlds who are fighting with one another. So please try to identify what's not working, what are the pain points, and like Harry said, then try to think how can we optimize the flow, because SAFe tells us that flow doesn't move through silos, and it is a very tough job. And I really admire project managers. I was a project manager for a lot of my professional life, and I know how hard it is to push the flow through those silos, and instead offer a different solution, like Harry said, make a pull system and see how the teams are going to feel when the value is going to flow through the system smoothly. And if the teams will see the difference, and if the teams will say, yeah, this is how we want to work because it's better for us and we feel better, then you will definitely see the change. And this is pushing the needle, what Harry was talking about. Always ask what's there for us. And
right.
Yeah.
Great answer. Do we have another question? So we encourage questions.
Yes, we still have 5 minutes. So if you have another question, please go ahead.
Waiting for the next question to pop in.
Waiting. Something is going on. All right, we have another one. So, Harry, how do you ensure that straightforward communication, usage of tools to measure and relentless improvement is not treated as a personal or kind of going into being treated as offensive or personal level?
Can you say it again? So something about being personal level.
Yeah, so basically we want to use the tools to measure relentless improvement, but how do we do this not in order not to treat it as a personal, or an offensive to the teams.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. In fact, we call that out. I'm not going to look it up, but I think it's in the metrics article. We talk about using metrics the right way because they certainly can be used for evil, right? We can use metrics to try to facts are friendly, gain improvement, or we can use metrics to point fingers and say this is why I'm better than you, and that comes really down to culture, right? Oscar and I were waiting for questions when talked about, the culture that we've been able to luckily create with this group of folks around SAFE, and it's a trusting culture. It's one of growth. It's got a growth mindset, and if you have an organization that has a relationship, a growth mindset, then metrics are just new facts. Great. Well, that's the truth, and we need to improve from the truth, not using it to blame or shame anyone. If you've got a generative, a different kind of culture, then metrics can be used in the wrong way and can be used for evil. And that's really a leadership thing, right? It's to make sure that leaders they're not doing it. They're role modeling the right behavior, and they're not allowing it to happen within the organization that they have. But we need data, right? You can't make improvement without data. So we need to get data, and making sure the data is correct, right? You also have to make sure that data is correct. That's one thing so as we wrote the AI and big data articles, one thing that became important, that's why big data is up at the top level in SAFE, the biggest place we can put it, because you want everybody to be using the same data. We want common data. We don't just want different data across different parts of the organization. We want there to be, we got to be able to trust the data too. So as we go get data, we have to make sure that it's correct, trustworthy, reliable, and then that we use it for good and not evil, I would say. Oscar, anything to add?
Thank you, Harry. Definitely. So like you said, promote transparency, and have this discussion that if we want to be transparent, we have to have data, just like Harry said. So it's not being offensive that I ask about the data. It's something very, very natural. That's the first thing. So you have to build the climate to have the data in the organization. And on the other hand, the second thing is when you always introduce data, please explain why are we using it in the organization. For example, this is a typical question. One team burns 30 story points per sprint and the other 70. Which team is faster? We cannot say, because obviously the story points are relative to every team, and the leadership has to understand it before they will start using it. And also ask the leadership this question: so if the team will be burning, like 30 story points on average per sprint, will you encourage them to burn even to go 36 or 40 and 50, etc., and explain to them that it's not the point. Our goal is to find a sustainable pace and predictability within the teams. And when we have this understanding before we are starting using those metrics, then I believe that we have a better chance to avoid those kind of situations. And then you can always go back. So we will have this kind of manager who will be pushing the teams to take even more in the next sprints, and you can explain to him or her, you remember we discussed about it, our goal is to find sustainable pace, the team has found it, so I will show you what is going to happen if you are going to overload the teams in the upcoming sprints. You are just going to kill the flow within the team. And that sort of understanding, I believe, is something that we are aiming for.
Great examples. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you so much. So we have 1 minute. So let me just at the very end share the screen one more time. If you would like to reach out to Harry or to me, please go ahead. It will be a pleasure to connect and also to answer your questions. And thank you so much, Harry. It was an absolute honor to be here with you and to have this webinar with you. And thank you for great talk.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Always fun to talk around SAFE, and I love the fact we had a little chance to chat online too when there weren't any questions. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for the attendance. You know where to find us, and have a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are.